Over the course of the Switch's lifespan, I've played all sorts of games with all sorts of styles, but on a pretty regular basis, I'll run into titles that throw some odd and different combinations at me that I wasn't expecting. That's absolutely how I feel about Umamusume. Pretty Derby, Party Dash, a title that takes a bit of a kitchen sink approach to things, throwing in a variety of sports events that play out roughly like enhanced mini-games, loads of story, if that's what you're looking for, and a few other surprises as well. The bulk of the gaming content revolves around 4 events that are part of the Slapdash Grand Prix, which you'll be able to play through solo or with up to 3 friends either locally or online. I'd say that about half of them are at least different and can be challenging, while the other 2 feel more limited and like glorified mini-games that don't really come together. On the weaker end of the spectrum are Gourmet Gauntlet, which feels like a somewhat familiar variation on mini-games you've likely played before. Each team will pair up a person eating with a person serving, and aside from periodic special drops that will appear, your general focus is on trying to continue to load your partner up with foods that are of the same type, building your score more rapidly. The other is Dodgeball Demolition, but the problem with it is simply that it isn't very exciting, with players trying to grab one of the balls, charge it up, and then throw it at one of their opponents. If you've been targeted, you have pretty limited means for avoiding being hit, but the real problem is that there's simply not much to it outside of those simple elements, beyond people using their special, but in terms of core play, the event is pretty dull. While I'd say Blazing Baskets is at least a little better than the other 2, it being among the stronger half of the events has more to do with the competition than it clearly being a stronger game. Again, your goal will be to try to get control of the ball, but this time your goal will be to make shots by holding down the button to the right point, then hoping to rack up a higher score than your competitors. It's pretty basic, but at least it felt like it was executed reasonably well. The last event, and the one I consider to be the strongest of the bunch, is a race on an obstacle course that throws power-ups and special attacks into the mix as well. Honestly, it plays out as a bit of a mess, but especially with some friends you can see where it has potential for fun, and thankfully it isn't over too quickly, so there's time for you to stage a comeback if you're determined. Outside of those events, the other draw would be if you enjoy these Umamusume characters, working through the game's story mode and decorating their clubhouse. One item of particular interest for you to put there is a game console, since getting that will unlock the last surprise, and that's a pretty fun old-school arcade-style action game. I'd be lying if I denied that this roguelike runner/shooter was the element in the game that hooked me the most, but depending on your taste, there may be other things that grab your attention. All in all, this feels like a pretty niche offering, with the events and unlockable action game not being quite enough to likely justify buying in, but I'm sure there's an audience out there for it nonetheless. Overall, my final score for the game ended up being a 6.3. And if you're interested in picking it up, it's currently available on the Switch eShop for $44.99. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this review. And if you'd like more information or ideas of indie games worth checking out on Switch, be sure to click on the link provided in the description. Until next time,